plan to watch this later on, that's entirely up to you. Over the last couple of days, I've been asking people to post some questions with regard to either universal or global or human or soul or whatever type of energy that you wanted to know some answers about. And I must admit, I've got some hugely diverse questions, which personally I'm very grateful for. Logically, it makes me think, wow, what is going to flow from me today with regard to the answers. But the thing is, though, whatever I do say and whatever, because Cheron will come, maybe not through me, most likely. The choice is for you to decide what works for you and what doesn't. Just because I am sharing wisdom that can come from another perspective, remember, they are not having a human experience. We are. So it's up to us to decide what feels right, what feels wrong, and to take home what, keep what is yours and let go what is not. So that's the important message I really do have to say with regard to that. So, hi, I'm Phoenix, and I've been doing online sessions for a wee while now. Although this one through Google Hangouts is the first one I've done like this for a while. So, excuse me if there's any technical issues or challenges that I have with regard to that. It's just me getting to know the process. I'm sure over a period of time that will get a lot easier. So a little bit about me. I'm Phoenix and I'm 47, and I've been, can I say teaching? Yes, I can. Probably for the last 10 years, about 20 plus years, and I must, please excuse me, time is not a big factor in my life. The fact that I'm here on time is a good thing. For some reason, time and me, we are mutual respectful of each other, but that's about as far as it goes. I don't wear a watch. The only time that I see is the one on this computer or on the phone that I use from time to time. How's that for a pun? Anyway, so I was in a meditation one time, and I got told that I basically asked them what my purpose in life was, and surprisingly enough, and I say surprisingly because at that time I considered myself pagan, and I still do, and a witch, and to do so for some people, and once again correct me if I'm wrong, working with angels is not something that many witches choose to do, but this is something that essentially came naturally for me, so I just did whatever was required. So anyway, Gabriel, and it was in female form, I'm going to say it because I do believe angels are essentially genderless. This female, a huge, tall female, came towards me and she said one word, and that was teach. Now, at the time, yes, I'm a registered nurse and I have been nursing for about 30 years now. And I thought, well, the only thing I could think of at the time was that I was going to be teaching nursing. Little did I know that as things evolved, as I opened myself to my potential and the things that I really enjoy, the things that I'm passionate about, then I found that the teaching came naturally. I can't remember how long ago, but I did an Akashic journey. First time I did it, though, I couldn't get in. The second time, about probably 2 years later, I was shown a huge crystal and I was told to stand in front of it, which I did. And then I was gifted a piece of that crystal. Now, obviously, symbolically, that crystal represented wisdom to me. And I was given a piece of that wisdom to have a constant connection with, to provide the information needed the way I share it. I like to believe that I work from a place of integrity and honesty from my perspective. However, I just go with what feels right for me at the time. The information that comes through, I believe, especially when my logical brain, so I will be honest, my logical brain in the past has got in the way of my journey at times. And Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? No, it's neither, because I am human and I am soul. And I like to think over the experiences that I've had, I've learnt to honour both. And also what I tried to teach people is that I've learnt that to have a fulfilled life for me personally, I need to have both working hand in hand to provide the journey I am choosing to be in, and also to help other people with their journey and what they choose to be in, if they decide to listen to the type of energy that I'm sharing. So that's pretty much how I started this journey. There's a lot more to it, but I've only got an hour here, and I've got a lot of questions that some people have asked over the last couple of days. So I'm going to scroll down and work through these questions. Some of the answers will, of course, come from the wisdom that I'm connected to Source with, but also you may or may or not see the changes as those that work with me. A little bit about Cheron, if you want to know about them. I was introduced to them a few years back. Before that, I was working with a Gaia earth-based energy, and her name was Dana. Well, she gave me the name Dana. And another energy source that came from Source, and we agreed that name was Josiah. And the information that they gave us paved the way for me opening up my potential and allowing the types of energy, the human and the soul, and allowing those two to work with me independently. But eventually I married the two together. And once I got used to the energies of both and working with both, then I was then introduced to a group of beings who, are they alien? Are they extraterrestrial? No, I don't think they've actually walked on any type of existence. They are more guardians of the Akasha, if you want to say that, guardians of wisdom. They provide amazing information that logically, when I read the stuff that flows, that I type, or as I progress and talk, the information is just way above my pay grade, to be honest. But that's okay. That I'm just along for the ride and providing the information from their perspective. Once again, as I said, please take on board what feels right for you and let go that which does not. So anyway, Cheron is a group of beings who I've been told there is 12 of them. They told me, and I'm a little bit mindful of labels and terms and origins and names and titles, but they told me, well, we agreed. Initially, they told me their name was CHRN, and I thought to myself, well, how am I supposed to be comfortable with that? I mean, I don't talk in consonants. So I was the one that put the E and the O into the name, and we agreed on this identification that they and me came to an agreement with, and we talked about and we, that's how Cheron, the name Cheron, manifested from that. Interestingly enough, though, this year, in Pluto, I don't know if you're aware of it, but the satellite that went past there, it was awesome, man. It was like a validation, so to speak. And they noticed some energy spikes that were occurring in one of the moons around Pluto. And they were just fascinated by it. And that particular moon was called Cheron, Charon. But if anybody who is my friend that knows me, I get called Nix, Nix. And the other moon that's right beside Cheron, around Pluto, is Nix. So I was like, oh wow, well, where did this come from? So it was quite a profound experience for me, that one, because as I said, I am quite a logical person, and initially it was quite difficult for me to put aside my own thoughts, my own processes, and trying to make sense of things. And I understand and I respect the questions that come forward. Don't get me wrong. I was the one that always cast questions at the very beginning of my door opening and channeling journey, and getting the wisdom that I did. So yeah, that's essentially how Cheron and I got to know each other, how I started to put aside my logical mind, because I must say that no matter how many questions you ask, how many questions you get answered, and this is something that I've had to make peace with over the last 15, 20 years, is that there is just, it grows exponentially. So with one question that you get answered, you get about 2 more questions from it, and more questions and more questions and more questions. It is how it is. And that's how I've learned to make peace with it. It's like I can see that I'm never going to be able to physically, mentally, psychologically catch up with the information that's out there, even though we all have a connection with source and with our human. And this, I believe, comes from our heart energy center. Our heart vibrates and pulsates, and it goes outside of our body. Our heart would be, when we say the heart, it's not just the physical heart that sits within your chest. It's also the vibrational energy that flows outwardly, and that has a connection with source. That has a connection with everything around you. That is our designated connection spot to connect with source. Now, there are other energy centers within our body, outside and inside. And one of the questions that someone's asked later on, I don't know if it's for today or later on this evening, but there are Tora, there are Merkaba, there are energies all around us, but there's also the chakra, and how those energy centers work with us. So we are essentially a living, vibrating, physical human being that has solar energy around us. And when I say solar, I'm not talking about the sun, although the sun is very beautiful today, but I'm talking about soul and how that piece of it is within you. I remember growing up, many a time I got told that, the soul is within you. And I thought, oh, yes, it's your whole soul. As I've discovered over the last 20 years, that's not entirely the case. We have part of that soul living within us, and also the other part staying in source. And there's a mediator, and some people call that the higher self, the inner voice. It may even be Cheron that's talking to me. Origin is not important of where these messages or insight comes from. It's the message itself that I strongly encourage for you to listen to. You have the wisdom there, you have the knowledge there. It's just that our human veil, which we've placed, whether or not it was placed at birth or placed as we've been conditioned over our lifetime, our current perceived lifetime, that is the thing that we have to work with, to release, let go, and just allow the information to flow forward, most of the time without question. But as a human being, to question is to be human is to feel, and to be human is to question, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So I'm going to get to the questions, because as I said, we've only got another 45 minutes now. I'm quite good at talking when I get started. One of the questions here, I was actually asked this a couple of days ago by a lady called Joanna, and this is a question that is quite emotive, and there is no right, there is no wrong, and it's even a question that me and my partner have huge debate about, because I used to be extremely emotive about the things that occurred on the media and the news. I hardly ever watched the news. I used to be reactive to some of the things I experienced at work. I'm a registered nurse, and I've dealt with all sorts of things over the last 30 years that can bring out the emotion in me. I'm quite an emotional person. Not as emotional, or no, actually that's not true. I'm still highly emotional, but I'm not as reactive, because I'm choosing how I want to be, that is in line with my authentic self. So anyway, Joanna asked this question, and once I'm going to just stress that whatever feels right for you, that's perfectly all right. Okay, as you discover and learn and grow, you may start feeling the same way as I've been told, or what feels right for me. But however it is what it is. I'm going to be saying that a lot, essentially. But her question is: do souls know that they're coming here to be murderers, rapists, and other people that are not so nice in the society? And she said, if so, I don't think it helps society evolve to be better. In fact, it makes no sense. As she's open-minded as they come, but what about the child that goes through the experiences that these people have placed on them? Is it just a journal when they get back to soul? And because as soon as you transition, this is a whole other question, but as soon as you transition, your human emotionness dissolves. It doesn't exist, because that's why we have one of our reasons why we have a human experience is to feel. So when you return back to source, you can actually emotionally detach yourself from the experience and be grateful from the experience and what had ever happened. The type of response I gave Joanna a couple of days ago is that, yes, we have a soul contract. Yes, there are people that are placed on this earth to do certain things that are what, from a human perspective, and this is what I need to stress, from a human perspective, it's atrocious. From a human perspective, I do not like it. I do not like war. This is why I do not turn on the TV. I do not like how even at the smallest level, how we can be so harsh to one another. But that does not necessarily mean that it's always a bad thing. And this is where me and my partner have some really interesting debates. Essentially, though, if you have a look at some of the major atrocities in the world created by major catalysts in the form of people, wars, scientific breakthrough, even if it has a not so positive result, it always amazes me, and this is something that I've only just noticed really in the last 5 years. It amazes me how it brings people together. And what really concerns me is that it takes a tragedy or an atrocity or something globally painful to actually bring people together, and not just people within that country, but also people surrounding that country. You only have to see like those planes that went down, and these just one of many that humanity do to one another, or some of the horrible things that happened in the past. Just how either A, technologically we've advanced, not entirely sure if that's a positive or a negative thing, by the way, or B, how externally or internally it's just brought people together, even if it's in thought. And that's something that is important, and for humanity is to remember that consciously we are all in this together. Physically, we may be separate. And the reason why we feel separate is because in the last 2,000 years, we've been in an energy era, and it's been labeled the Pisces, where that we have gone into a patriarchal energy source, and where that it's all about the id, the me, the I, as opposed to moving into a new energy source, which is Aquarius, called the new paradigm, where we are collectively realizing that we are in this together. That okay, we can put one thought out into the world, but if many people are putting thought out into that world, then the power of thought is amazing. I'm just going to leave that one because that's a whole topic in itself. I just want to get back to Joanna's question. But these catalysts, and I'm going to call them that just to take the emotion away from it, but these catalysts that bring us together is a reminder that we are together. And yeah, I'm not condoning the poor people that were affected by these catalysts at all from a human perspective. But from a soul perspective, believe it or not, they're not. We like to think that they are punished when they return to source, but they're not. They are welcomed, they are honoured, and this is something that me and my partner have major discussion about. And they are treated with the gratitude that they for the things that they did to us. And it is to us, because some of it was absolutely horrendous. But the way it shifted the dynamics of humanity, either as a whole or even if it's in a family unit, just the dynamics are things that occur within a family unit because of that catalyst event. It changes things. And what I would challenge is that it would be so much better to collectively come together in thought and a positive catalyst as opposed to a not so positive catalyst. And this is another reminder of why we have these experiences, why they were placed here in the first place. Is say, hey, humans, you can actually do this in a better way. You do not have to have the need for power, the need for control, the need to dominate, the need to harm or hurt or kill. No, we are in this together to help one another and to bring some of that energy from source, which is based around love, into our society without getting caught up in the actual event. I challenge that we do this in a more positive way. To do this, though, it would take quite a collective of thought. But the thing is, though, and that's what many people say, well, how can my one thought make any difference? The thing is, though, you're not alone in your thought. There are many people that will be very like-minded. Many of us are coming together with the like-minded thought that we are in this together, and it would be really nice to actually do things from a peaceful, positive perspective. Wow, that's quite a mouthful. But anyway, the thing is remembering that, yes, these people gave permission, whether or not they are the catalyst or the victim from that catalyst. But it's that they did it to ensure that we, as a human collective, come together and realize that we can do it a whole lot differently. It's not just a journal and take back to soul. I mean, from a soul perspective, that individual soul, they're more there to provide a purpose for when they are here as their human self, for humanity as a soul. So although this is just slightly different to what I told you, Joanna, it really is it's an emotive discussion, which it is something that you are either going to agree with or not going to agree with. And you just have to find that inner peace with regard to the fact that it will all make sense when you return back to source. We are not always meant to understand the nuances of the human condition, because there are many reasons why when we look at the human condition, we define it from a social, a media, or even a individually upbringing way. So I hope that answers some of your questions. Let me know if it doesn't. We're going to be doing this again on a regular basis, so it's all good. And feel free to talk to me about it later on. And then another question from Shelley. And she's basically asking the question, is knowledge more harmful than good? When we do not understand something, it is way easier to let go of it because we know nothing of it, rather than worry it's not done in that logical 3D process we learn. Now, you really hit the nail there. Humans seem to think, well, and that's okay, seems to think that we're having this linear existence. We're not. We're having multiple experiences from many different soul sources, and we are gathering a whole lot of information, whether or not we want to or not. Believe it or not, everything is in plain sight, whether or not we are subconsciously taking it from a human perspective or we are taking on board and listening to the messages that are coming from a source perspective. Is it more harmful than good? The knowledge is always there. It's just our ability to remember it is not. We choose how much we want to take on board and remember and keep, and not just from the information gathering we're doing, but also the constant connection to source that I mentioned before. It is providing information for you all the time. It's up to you to decide what you take on board and what you don't. And is it more harmful than good? it's all what you do with knowledge. I mean, knowledge can be considered, that whole saying, knowledge is power. I would like to turn that around and say knowledge is empowerment. Knowledge is for self, not for placing a diction on another person and stating this is how it is, this is how you should follow it. No, knowledge is not that. That's the human aspect that is actually corrupting the information that you've been given or gifted and turning it into something that it's not. And I could ramble off quite a few experiences with regard to that, or situations, or even ways of being, belief, values, religion, belief, anything that could go on for. This is a whole other. I could write a book about this. How, depending on however you get that information, it's the responsibility, and that's something that we forget. We are responsible for the things that we are given. We are responsible for where we're placing ourselves and what we're creating around us. And if we are using a certain skill set or knowledge base in a positive way, that's fantastic. But just be aware that sometimes some people's positive is another person's not so positive. We have to be mindful, as I said, that we are all in this together. Even a knowledge thought or a gem or a crystal that you place into a pond, it's going to vibrate and it's going to have that ripple effect on everybody. Once again, whether or not it's a negative or a positive, irrelevant of that. The responsibility with regard to the knowledge is the key to make sure that you are aware if you are doing something that's harmful or not so harmful. As to go with regard to letting go, you will find that the aspect that's making it more challenging to let go is the emotion as opposed to the information itself. You will attach an emotion to that knowledge. Based on your conditioning, based on the things that you're aware of, based on the things that you were told, based on that intuition, that connection to source that I was mentioning about. You will place an emotion on it. And that is the part that you need to let go. If you can have a healthy detachment emotionally to a piece of information that you're given and how you're going to use it, you will find that you're more often than not use it for good as opposed to harm. Feel free to discern that. But the thing is, though, if you take on board and the responsibility for the information that you are given, and you take on board your choice in how you're going to emotionally respond to that information that you are given, then you will find that you are working from the heart as opposed from the head. If you are trying to control based on the information and the knowledge that you're given, then that's a human response. That's using all sorts of variants as to why you would want to control an outcome or control another person based on what you're trying to tell them. This is why it's quite interesting, this aspect, because I disseminate information all the time. And I get told this information from Cheron, and I'm very blessed that they do that for me. I'm also consciously aware of how I deliver it, even though I don't always change what they say, because sometimes it can create more confusion because some of them have very scientific ways of speaking. However, that responsibility of the information that I'm disseminating, I own that. I own how I disperse it, but I don't own how you respond to it, because that is based on your own little pocket of individuality, your own social conditioning, all the things that are there for you to make of with regard to that little snippet of information that I've given you. And not just me, but all people are around you. Even if someone that looks at you funny, your head's going to go, well, why are they looking at me that way? But your heart's going to say, well, obviously they're thinking about something else. Now, you can attach an emotion to that, and you can either get fearful, or you feel like you're being judged, or you can think, all right, well, this is something that they're projecting. I'm okay with that. That's their journey, not mine. I'm not going to buy into it. So that's the other thing with knowledge, is determining what and discerning what you will buy into, what you will not. The responsibility of how you're going to disseminate or own that information or take on board that information, and then the emotional attachment will determine whether or not you're going to be able to let it go or not. So it's the emotion behind it that you need to look at, not the knowledge itself, because knowledge is almost standalone, but it's your own social conditioning, your own emotions that could manipulate it into something good or something not so good. But that's something that you have to be responsible for. Not just you, Shelley. I'm talking about everybody generally. I hope that makes sense. But we are not just having a 3D process. Although it may appear that we are born, we live, and then we transition, and that's all in a straight line. That's illusion 101. But once again, that's a whole other question. So I hope that helps answer some of that question. You asked another one, Shelley, and I'm just going to read what you said. You said, I've heard conflicting views on whether animals reincarnate and how they are only here to assist our human spiritual growth. And you just want that clarified a little bit. I'm going to have to sit with this one. Everything around you has a cause and effect. I've got a glass of water here. That's affecting me. I'm affecting the glass. Animals, they do the same. They have their own vibrational energy. Everything has a vibrational energy. And as this seems to be the theme for this session, but collectively we're all in this together. We all affect one another, even if it's just occupying a space in front of us. Animals, they are sometimes more evolved than what we are. They have a different way of communication. They have a different way of making us feel. They have a different way of, but do they really? We can essentially feel exactly the same way. Have you ever spoke to an animal? I believe that we choose, there are some cultures out there that believe that we have been all different animals, and from a very tiny ant to a huge whale. I remember connecting with somebody to their past life, and it blew me away because this really affected my logical mind, is that all I could see was a whale. Was she a whale? Maybe, maybe not, but that's what I was shown, and she was the energy of the whale. We're not just the physicality. We're not just the material DNA and the coding that makes up that particular animal or plant or material. Will I say pieces of paper? Well, they come from trees, so I know they have the energy and life and wisdom. Everything has the potential to have a certain amount of wisdom, and how we define that logically and scientifically. Well, there are people that have done some testing on animals and how they communicate, determining ways that they can communicate. We always think the primates are a lot more evolved, than most other animals. But you'll find that through various ways there is a communication that goes on. And sometimes as human beings, because we think we're at the top of the food chain, which I question that big time, then we think, oh, we're better than, we're more than the dog or the cat or the bird, or they have aspects where, sure, they are not able to read, right? Or so they think. In our way, from a human perspective, we keep defining people from a human perspective, or energies or life forms from a human perspective. That couldn't be more wrong. That just limits and puts things into boxes. And yes, there's just no way a dog is going to be able to get a job, but they do. I mean, we've trained them, but is that because we've trained them and they've been conditioned to do that? How honestly have you ever seen any animals running wild, and how they interact with one another, how they have a social structure very similar to how we are? I think we should stop, and I'm not downing your question at all, Shelley. I do believe animals reincarnate. They are energy source. Everything has the energy, and everything returns back to source, which is energy. And depending on how that energy or that collective consciousness integrates back into source as a whole. Do humans go to a different source or a different heaven or a universal consciousness than the animals? I question that. I think we all return back to the same melting pot that we all stem from. But that is something that it's probably best to sit with, really, and to do with what works for you. There is many a time that we have had an animal for some people where they have passed, and then you meet a person that has very, I know that sounds bizarre, but you meet a person that has very similar attributes. Why is that? Why do these things occur when we are around actual human beings or even another animal where they have very similar attributes and they've had absolutely nothing to do with the animal that has passed? I had a bird once, and he was a rainbow lorikeet, beautiful bird. I swear he used to talk to me in a different way, not verbally. Oh yeah, he tried, but there was a psychic link, so to speak. And then when he passed, I could swear he was still talking to me. So the energy lives on, and they can come back if they choose to. Very similar to how we reincarnate either as a human being or a different being in another dimension, or we're not just having a human experience as our soul. We're having all sorts of variant of experiences. So yeah, to cut a long story short, Shelley, I do believe your animals, our animals, and all things that have a vibrational field can return back in its way. Substances and material things, that's maybe scientifically. My logical brain's kicking in on that one. I don't think so. But then who are we? We are only basically assessing and determining things based on our human current knowledge, which I believe is incredibly limited. I believe we are more. There's more to existence than what we are currently scientifically and spiritually aware of. Feel free to question that one. I've got another question here from what he calls him Boy Low, and this is very interesting. Please, can you ask who are those beings seen near the outer belt of our solar system, and are they hostiles or friendlies? Not entirely sure why, my friend, you are asking just on the outer belt. I'm just going to let someone else work on this one. Not to make you paranoid or anything, but we are constantly being watched. There's a lot of energies that are fascinated with who we are. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they negative? Are they positive? Be very mindful how you define things, because like all things, humans tend to put things in a box, and they also tend to put things either on a good side or a bad side, good, evil, dark, light. The energies that are higher evolved, they don't need the war that humanity seems to think that they do. They're not here to question and dominate and all the things that people in power on your planet tend to do. They are there to observe and experience from a different perspective. Remember, any alien being from a different life form, a different dimension, are going to be watching you based on their own knowledge. That's essentially what you do naturally. And the way around that, to determine whether or not they're positive or negative, is to ask yourself, does it matter? There are no current life forms that are capable of crossing the distances that of space from the point A to point B, their planet to your planet. Yes, there are alien, or there are beings that can bypass your reality and move in and observe for a while and go back again. Now, realizing that they are most likely evolved beings that have come from a similar gene pool to yourself. And they are fascinated from a historian point of view as opposed to the need to come here and dominate. That is a human response to curiosity, the concern of having a highly evolved being taking interest in us. And it's like any time on your planet where some people from one country have got an eye on another country. Humans from history naturally assume that these people are going to start to dominate the other person and squash down their natural evolution. It's not the case with the evolved beings. Those beings that do have a very similar mindset to humans do not have the capacity to travel through that dimensional space, which we won't go into, but through that dimensional space to your planet. They are very similar to you, and knowing how vast the universe is, your universe is, if you have some concept with regard to that, then you will find that you will understand that it's near impossible for people similar to your technology and to your mentality and psychological ethos that are capable of dominating. They are unable to get from A to B. So those that are watching are evolved humans. I'm going to say we are their ancestors, so to speak. I don't know if you understand the concept of past, present, future, but all is happening at once. It's quite a unique concept, to be honest, but all is happening at once in a fluid motion. Sometimes they come together and you can have a crossover, and that's where people who are more technologically advanced can observe. They don't always come into our space to observe. They can observe through a portal, so to speak, and watch our progression. So ask yourself, really, Boy, whether or not this question is based around concern of personal space and based on human understanding, or you truly understand that those that are capable with a similar mindset to human beings would be able to travel here to be a hostile. It seems to be a lot of energy involved in trying to get from A to B to dominate. And if you think about it, there are so many life forms out there which some cultures would rather, and religions would rather not believe in, that we are just one. We're the needle in the haystack. What makes, with the Milky Way so special? We are part of this collective. We are part of the universal collective. We're not part of a hierarchical development of sentient life forms. No, we are in this together, and we will affect one another, not just on your planet, but globally and interdimensionally, believe it or not. So I hope that answers some of your question. Carol asked, how is a channel chosen by spirit? It's quite interesting, that one, actually. Because I believe everyone's capable of doing this. But whether or not people are able to let go and decide whether or not they want to do this is entirely up to them. Not everybody is comfortable in doing this process. But that's a choice thing. You are always chosen by spirit. You always have energies around you, whether or not they be spirit guides or ancestors or totems or animal energies, or even interdimensional energies that want to work with you. How it's chosen is just by being in your moment, stilling your mind, which for me, my mind goes quite a lot. The only time it switches off is when I'm watching inane TV shows. But essentially, you just have to sit and trust and allow. And the only way to do that is you can either, just go at it running, which I didn't because I had an experience which scared me. So I thought, no, I'm not really into that kind of stuff. But then I found that as I was typing and writing, I was bringing through them anyway in a different way that made them feel safe. So that, and it's not always spirit. You can have some beings from other dimensional areas that choose to communicate that way. Always discern how they feel. I've had, like as I mentioned at the start, I've had 2 at the beginning that sort of paved the way for me, and then they brought through the 12 from Cheron. But I have had the occasional human being that's walked the earth to try and work with me. I prefer to work with energies that are a little bit more higher vibrational. It's not hierarchical, it's just what I prefer. And I know some beautiful people that can channel some past loved ones that are providing messages from source, and that's what they like to do. So, Carol, you have to determine what type of energy you like working with, and determining that yes, you are ready. You're not chosen. It's a relationship. It's just like, meeting a person for the first time. This is how it felt for me. It's like meeting a person for the first time and building that relationship and trust as you do so. And it was for me, it was reluctant at the start, but that's okay. They were patient. They're always patient. It's you that is the one that has to let go any kind of need for control, any kind of need for or concern about the process. You will know what feels right, and you will know what feels wrong. And the way to safely engage a new person is to have somebody introduce you. And the way to do that is by asking your guides to say, well, hey, I'm ready. Ready to get to know this person. Can you stand by my side as I do so? Or whatever you work with, Carol, that's entirely up to you. If you work with God, that's cool. Ask God to stand by your side as someone chooses, or you are readying yourself to allow the process. You're not chosen. Everyone is capable. It's you that decides. It's you that makes the choice. It's not spirit. They're constantly hovering, hoping to express, and they get very, very excited when someone opens themselves up to allow this communication to occur. But the way that communication is to occur is, one, you've got to introduce yourself, build the relationship, build the trust, build also the way you communicate with one another, because it's very different from, everyone's different how it starts. Some start using auto writing, others get it through dream, others channel people through meditation. It's all very different. So to answer your question, it's not the spirit that chooses, it's you. You choose to be ready. I hope that answers your question. Oh, Joanna, you've got another question. They say when we return to source, we lose emotion. So do we still feel happiness and spirit and love if the human emotion goes? The only thing I can say to this is, have you ever gone into a receptive state where you said, I'm ready to feel my guides, I'm ready to feel source, I'm ready to feel the energies that I'm quite capable of connecting to because I have a constant connection there. Sometimes, everyone's different how they get into that space. They either do a meditation ritual or they will do some kind of religious ritual. Everyone is different how they feel that bliss state. It's overwhelming, and how the word love is not enough. Love in itself, if you can imagine each letter LOVE, having the size of and the expanse of each universe. This is how this love feels. That's how expansive it is. The word love, it's such a tiny word in human terms, but to feel that overwhelming acceptance, beauty, uh, bliss, it is something that encompasses so much more than the emotion. Love in source is not just the emotion, it's that collectiveness, it's that pure understanding, it's that pure consciousness, it's also that pure awareness. Uh, and that's how source defines love. Love is not the human term. Love is, and that's how it's been defined from our perspective, and that's okay. Gives some people some understanding of how it works. But honestly, it's pure consciousness, it's pure awareness, and it's pure collectiveness that you share a dance from expanse. It's huge, and as a human being experiencing that, sometimes it's very hard to come back because you feel very like almost two-dimensional when you return, because you've been outside of your body and connected to so much more, that when you return back into this tiny little body, you almost get a sense of huge disappointment. But that feeling, that connection, can be constant. It can almost be like the eternity symbol. It's constantly moving. If imagine the eternity symbol, and it's moving constantly. It never stops. So, and imagine yourself as being the one that's at the point. Uh, it can flow from within and without, as above, so below. So, love is not the emotion that we define in Source. Love is so much more up there. So, I hope that answers your question. I work on a regular basis with a person called Staritza. That's the name she likes to go by. And she has asked some pretty hairy questions over the last couple of years in working with Cheron. And she has posted a question on here as well. And here's one, and this one I'll have to step back because I can understand. She always manages to test my logical brain. All right, so Ritz has asked, is there any relationship between the amount of overlap between Tora? Now, I don't know if you know what a Tora is, but as I mentioned before, there are energy sources around us. A Tora is around everything. I don't even know how to describe it to you. It's almost like if you can imagine a donut, with the hole in the middle, and the energy is just constantly moving around that donut. We have one around ourselves, we have run around the planet, we have run around the universe. This is something that's in everything. And she's asking, is there any relationship between the amount of overlap between Tauras? So I had mine. My children and my partner have ours, and every single person that we come in contact with, they have theirs. And the amount of, she's basically asking whether or not Tora, and when we come in contact with another person, if there's a reflection experience within that relationship. Like with any energy that interacts, because everything vibrates, not only our cells but also the energies around us, there requires a dance. And sometimes that dance can be reflected. So, like when you're doing a waltz, some person will move when you move to the opposite, or you'll clash. It's entirely dependent on the choices that both make and how they respond to the energies that have been shared with each other. Now, yes, you are going to have people, because I remember when I first started this journey, the term, mirroring and reflection, and you see in others what you need to learn. I had huge trouble with this logically. I couldn't work that out for the life of me. But the thing is, though, no matter if you're dancing in synchronicity or you're clashing, there is still either a dance between the energy centers, and it's a reminder that you're capable of a experience that's more than just a human physical experience. I'm just going to try and step aside a little bit because this one is trying to do a bit of both. um, so when you allow, and you do allow, because this is your reality, don't forget that, you allow the energies to come towards you. And it's your responsibility of what you allow. Now, whether you're not, if you're aware of it consciously or subconsciously, is irrelevant. Uh, there is a buy-in and there is an allowance process. So when someone comes near you that you're feeling uncomfortable with, basically because of the energies that are merging, you can decide whether or not you want to stay into that energy space, or you want to move away. And this essentially is what life is all about. Your existence as a human being in this particular incarnation is all about, is the dance that occurs between you and the space around you, whether or not that space involves another human being, an animal that's barking outside there, and she may be far away, but she's still invading my space. I'm trying to release myself from that. So if you just allow, then you will have the experience that you are wanting to experience at that time. That's what that responsibility is all about. And the way to ensure that you have the experience of choice is by aware of the feelings that you feel when you're moving and dancing around people. I don't know if you understand the concepts of fractals and how they dance around and they move, and sometimes they overlap and sometimes they work together in synchronicity, or they go apart because they're very, very different. They're different colors. They clash. That's exactly what happens with any kind of energy centers, either the chakra or the Tora. Your allowance factor allows a certain aspect to be reflected to you with the environment that you're in. It's an interesting concept, trying to determine whether or not you create your reality. Thought is the catalyst that allows certain things to occur. Emotion is the reasons why some things occur more often than not. Patterns and behaviors that you have, there are reasons why same thing happen over and over. The dance is not complete. You haven't honored the spaces between the experience. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in as far as that awareness of this can be changed. Awareness of this can allow things to be changed based on the things that you feel, because everything, honestly, is in plain sight. And this is why it's really important to allow thought to be as aligned with your authentic self as much as possible. Because if you don't, then you will get the clashing and you will get that uncomfortable feeling. You will get people reflecting back on you through their energy sources, different aspects that you really don't want to see, or they are testing you, so to speak. And you know what? One of the things that is really important, that life is to be lived. It's all well and good trying to define it and say, oh, what's the lesson in this? What can I take from this? Yeah, that's fine. But life is still meant to be lived. You're here to have a human experience. Yes, sure, you've got a connection with Source, and you have a beautiful soul that's ready to shine and allow people to see you for how you really are. But your human condition is allowing you to experience it from a different perspective. And that's what you chose. Just be in the moment. When life gets overwhelming, just be in the moment. Stop, breathe, allow yourself to reflect, and then decide what it is you're going to do. And that's essentially what you can do when you start noticing sensations when you're around other people, other environments. Even an environment, if it's not conducive to the things you prefer, it will start to affect you. I work in a hospital, and and I've been a nurse for 30 years. You would think I'd be used to that, but the energies there, although I can minimize what I allow myself to buy into, it's a constant challenge to move away from the things I don't like. It's a constant challenge to decide whether or not I'm going to stay in that space where everyone is kind of toxic and treating each other badly, or I just move away and I look after my patient and I just do the things that I want to do. I want to feel the certain things I want to feel when I'm making a patient feel better. And that can almost take that same concept with almost every situation. You choose what you want. And yet as a child, we get told, no, you have to wait. No, we need to remember that we can choose what we want at any time. It's our countermeasures that come from our subconscious that sometimes limits the dance. And that's essentially what Tora is all about and how it mixes with other people. It's the dance. And you're either going to dance well or you're going to clash. And then when you clash, you actually start mirroring aspects with one another that you may not necessarily want to see. So, yeah, I hope that answers that question, Star. As usual, you had to make me step aside a little bit. There's a few more questions here, and I'm not really getting to the end of it, but I could carry on for a little bit longer if you would like me to. But I just hope that you've gathered a lot of information in this respect. I'm just going to say thank you for coming today. I will answer the rest of the questions at another date. I'll just transfer them to the one tonight. We'll see how we go. But it goes very, very fast, isn't it? Time. For me, that doesn't like time. It goes very, very fast. But for the viewers that have come today, I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you again. And feel free to share it around. And I hope some of the information, as I said right from the very beginning, make sure you discern what I've said. Take on board what feels right for you, because this is only one energy's perspective, and I'm just the conduit that's providing that energy for you. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's Cheron. Hopefully you could determine which is which. So yeah, thank you for coming, and I hope to see you all again soon.